I hereby call to order the District 68 School Board meeting of Thursday, September 19th. May I get a roll call, please?
Paul Jordan.
Here.
Hyatt. Here. Glenbrook.
Here.
Ruffner.
Here.
Sturbins.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Warshaw.
Here.
I hereby open the public hearing on the adoption of the 2024-2025 proposed budget. And I believe we are trying to Kenya Austin.
Hi, Kenya.
Can you hear us okay, Kenya?
Hello. Yes.
Great.
How is everyone?
Great.
Good, good. Can I just voice over really quick before Kenya starts? So this portion of the public hearing is specific for the budget. This is an annual requirement that we are required to have. There is an opportunity for public comment following this. That's for the budget public comment, and then we'll have a typical normal section of the agenda for that as well. Ms. Kenya Austin is our amazing Assistant Superintendent of Business, CSBO. So amazing and such that she is offsite at a conference for the Illinois Association of School Business Officials. So that's why she is remote. She's an employee of the district. She started July 1 when I did as well. But I just want to explain why we have her presenting remotely and not in-house with us tonight. So that said, Kenya, it is all yours.
Thank you. All right, let me share my screen. And hopefully I can get it up without any flaws. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we're seeing the thank you page, and you're welcome.
Yep. All right, thank you. So this is the final budget and the budget hearing. So my first slide is trying to align it with the strategic plan. And me and Scott talked about this a few times, and we felt that the budget aligns with all of the strategic plans in some nature or some form when it comes to financing all of these things that the district wants to have. So we felt like all of them are a part of the plan of the budget, and we wanted to list them all. So I felt like that would be sufficient instead of just trying to list out all one at a time or one. I feel like we have established and touched something with all of these plans that you guys want in the strategic plan, all of them with the financial budget. So we'll go through all of that. Any questions with that? Do we agree or disagree? I think that makes sense for us to do all of them when it comes to finance.
Great.
So let's talk about the budget overview. I consider this a roadmap, spending authority, and a monitoring process. So a few years ago, the state changed the rules that we have to do for our projected beginning balances and also have our renewed revenue and our expenditures and our ending fund balances. And what I did with this plan, which I believe you did not do in the tentative budget, was I broke it out by operating funds and non-operating funds. And I did that because the state only looks at your operating funds. So the non-operating funds do not affect your financial profile, but the operating funds do affect your financial profile. So as you can see, the first section is the projected beginning fund balance. And I also want to state, I said projected because the final audit for last school year is not done, so these numbers could change slightly. And then the rest of it is going to go through in detail on the next few slides of the revenue and expenditures and other sources is transferring of the money for the capital projects. And then the last section is the ending balance that we project for the end of this school year. So let's talk about the revenue, and I broke it down in local, state, and federal. So our local revenue, as you guys know, 88.9% is taxes. And the rest is CPPRT, which is corporate personal property tax, and CPI is what affects our tax base. And that has decreased from 5% to 3.4% in the last year. And we project that that will remain the same between that time frame of the next several years, between 3 and 5%, 3 and 3.5%. And our collection rate is 98%, and I believe that remains consistent in this area. over the time, I believe that the property growth has increased to an average of 1 million over the last 5 years, and I think that's gonna potentially increase with the new growth of development in the area as well. Let's talk about a few more local revenue. Interest income, that has been going up slightly over the last few years, but we project that to go down to roughly 1.5% of a small increase, not as high as it has been over the last few years. Remaining stable, we have school fees, lunch program, the ELL Parent Center, tuition fees, and textbooks. This is the state revenue for all we have capital, categorical funds, which is private facility, private orphanage, and we project other things like that to maybe increase 1.575%. Sometimes with the state, we never know, they can reappropriate things at the last minute, but we're hoping those have a slight increase. Remaining stable is the state lunch program. We do not get as much funding from the state for the lunch program. We get majority of that funding on the federal side, which I will show in a few minutes. Evidence-based funding, we're at tier 4 where we don't usually get as much funding as the other school district. They roughly increased about $2,000 from last year. And then this is just a slide to show you a visual of what I just said previously. Let's talk the federal revenue. Federal revenue, we have the National School Lunch Program. That's gonna increase roughly about $2,000. And then you have the IDEA and the IDEA Pre-K. That has increased roughly about $125,000 from the prior school year. And remaining stable is all of our title funding. You do have a carryover of 15% to those areas from the prior year that wasn't expended, but we don't know about that in roughly until around November or December of this school year. And this is just a slide to show you a visual of those categories. And this is another visual to show you the operating funds as they stand and how they're allocated to this district. Education operating fund is basically 83% of our revenue, and then the next one would be O&M, which is 12%. And then this is just a slide showing you our non-operating funds, which of course, if you have any debt, that would be your largest of the non-operating funds. And then IRMRF is the second. So we have a 70% revenue percentage for debt service, and then we have 23.4% for IRMRF and Social Security. And then 5% toward. Any questions on revenue? Okay, let's move forward to talking about the expenditure factor. So expenditure factors increased about 1.9 million from the prior tentative budget, and those increases are justified below. So education, 1.7 million, that's between the salaries, hiring changes, benefit changes, all of those things taken account that were not increased in the tentative budget. NTSD did not give their final numbers for their tuition until July, so those numbers had increased from the tentative budget. And then an O&M capital projects, those are about 290,000 because we had some utility increases and some other building needs. And these are just slides showing you an overview of the different things, like expenditures by objects, which is salary, employee benefits, purchase services, supplies and materials, capital outlay, and other objects, non-capital, and termination benefits. And as you can see, the little slide over here shows you the colors and what the colors mean that as well. And then this slide will just show you those same expenses, but by a function standpoint. So instructional will always be your highest, and it's also categorized by each education, O&M, different funds. But you need support services will be your second highest, and your payment to other district and government units, which is pretty much your NTSD, any other outplacement services or anything you owe to other districts. That would be over there and that, and then you, as you can see, debt services is coming right along with that. So this slide is the budget comparison, and I think this is the best one out of all of them. It shows you what you ended with in the prior year as your final budget, what was the tentative budget that was presented in June, and what the final budget is here. And I wanted to go over some of the things you might see that are changes from the tentative to the final. Education, I made a note to myself, since the tentative budget was done by prior and not me, so I'm trying to make sure I get it right. And if I don't, please tell me. So the biggest one that I could see is O&M. From O&M, I did a little research. The tentative ended at 3.0 million, 3.1, but also in that tentative budget, it had a 77.5 million for working cash transfer, but it also had something for 10 million. And I do not believe that transaction took place for the transfer, because I do not see records of it in the beginning balances for this school year, and I do not see them as a transfer in the accounting system. So that one I need to look at a little bit more with the treasurer's office, but right now I do not see that change in the O&M fund balances from last year to the tentative to this year that I looked at. So I wanna make sure that that is true, and somebody can probably give me a little history on it to make sure I'm accurate on that. It was additional 10 million somewhere that was supposed to be in O&M. I think it's there, but it was supposed to be moved somewhere else. And I think in the tentative budget, he had that option to move it, but I didn't see any notations of where it was going. So I just left it in O&M until I can find out some additional information. And debt services, I'm a little less than him, and the reason being is because you had a previous balance in that debt service fund that I would like to use, because that money can only be used for debt. It doesn't need to be there, so I want to use that additional funding that was there to make sure we use it all, because it can't be used for anything else. So that's why I did that. And then for transportation, I'm a little higher because you guys bought buses. So I wanted to make sure that I captured all of that, or the buses were purchased in the prior year. So I wanted to make sure I got all of that in there as well. IMRF, that's a fluctuation between staff. I don't think that change is anything but staff movement, because IMRF is really just paying the benefits for your support staff and your classified staff. Capital projects, my number is less because I wanted to use the money that was already there and make sure I get all of that in there. And also some of the costs have went up. From working cash, he has 7.0, I have 4.3, and the reason being for that, the ECC building has increased roughly by 3 million or more from the initial cost that it was stated, I think, in the tentative budget. And that is the end of my presentation. Any questions?
I have just a short follow-up on the O&M. So you're saying that
Yes.
you're going to follow up to kind of reconcile the difference in, by 4.4 million, right, in the tentative 2020?
Yes, because when I looked at your last final budget in 23-24, there was a 7.5 transfer from working cash, but it also was a 10 million fund balance transferred for the pledge of capital projects. But when I look at the beginning fund balance this year, it looks like that money is still sitting in O&M, but in his tentative, maybe he was thinking of moving that out, but I just don't see that summary in his tentative budget. So I moved all the money for capital projects out of working cash instead of 7.5. I did the whole 13 because the price of the project went up. So I just made it easier. I didn't do 2 transactions of movement. I just did 1.
So when we are forced to understand that what we're being presented though is where you right now are putting the funds so that we can review the budget as is. You're gonna continue to do research as to why things didn't get where they needed to be, but the items are where they need to be now.
Yes, I just didn't break it up. I think, Mr. Berry did 10 million from working cash to capital projects.
Mhm.
And then it was also a movement last year of O&M, but that's why my balance is higher than what he did, cause it seemed like he was trying to do two movements, 10 million and I think 2 million. But I just did one sweep of 13 million straight out of working cash to capital projects.
The idea is to secure the funds in one location so that the building of the ECC is there,
Yes.
ready to go.
Okay.
There's no need.
Yes,
to
we
do
have
it
enough
additional
money
moves.
for, cause the project is now 16.7 million. I believe before it was maybe 13, a little less.
Correct.
It has increased over time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Kenya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now open this hearing to comments from members of the public. Kindly note public comment on any other issue besides the adoption of the budget should be held until the appropriate public comment segment of the regular meeting following this hearing. Does anyone wish to comment or have questions related specifically to the adoption of the 24-25 proposed budget? Nope. And I call to adjourn this public hearing. And we will now move to our regular meeting. We need to, Kenya joining us for the regular meeting via Zoom?
Yeah, show me on Zoom.
So we will now open our meeting for regular public comment. I do have only one registered comment, but I think there might be some flyers out there, so if anybody wants to hand one in, we'll consider that the, no? All right, that being the case. Please remember, this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, superintendent or the appropriate person will get back to you. I can take them, thank you. Please remember to state your name and your connection to the district. Please limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. And please avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member, respecting their right to privacy. We will begin with Jody Ehrenberg. And I also have submitted written comments that we will read following the spoken comments. Thank you.
I'm Jody, you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jody Ehrenberg. I am a parent of a child at Devonshire School. So, first I wanna thank the board members for your time and effort, and dedicating that to our district and our students and our families. As an educator, I know how difficult and complex your roles can be. As elected officials, you have the responsibility to see our district as a whole and determine what is best for everyone, and that is a huge undertaking and a large weight to bear. So I just want you to know that I recognize that. I'm here in many capacities, but all in connection to some alarming incidents that have taken place over the last couple of years. I am a District 68 alum, and I'm proud of it. But never once did I experience the hate and racist-fueled incidents that I've seen in my short time as a parent in this district. It's incredibly disappointing that even one has occurred with how diverse and uniquely beautiful this district is. However, my main role as a parent in this district is to ensure that my child and his community feel excited about attending school in District 68, feel proud of being a Devonshire Dolphin, and feel ready every day to walk into school, the school environment that accepts him. And as a parent, I expect and quite frankly demand that his school board protect that space for him, for me as a parent, for the faculty and staff who devote their time so willingly, and for our community every day. But you can't protect something if you aren't willing to acknowledge it and to try to sweep it under the rug every time it comes up. You must continue to engage in dialogue to even attempt to resolve and prevent these hate incidents from continuing. It will continue if you don't put your foot down and say no more. We just don't have the luxury of tolerating it any longer. We don't want to be another school district in the headlines because of a catastrophic event fueled by hate. The hate won't just go away if you ignore it. Your principals, teachers, parents, and students won't just make it disappear for you without your support. Whether it is in the form of words, physical threats, or actual violence, hate is the #1 issue infecting this district. And while you as a board don't determine programming for the district, you do determine policies, and you have the power and responsibility to keep the conversation at the forefront when setting those policies. Anti-Semitism is racism. It is the hate in the oldest form imaginable, and there is no excuse for it, and if you continue to sweep it under the rug and bury your heads in the sand, every time it comes up, you are complicit in the hate. Please don't be complicit. Lean on us as parents, as a community, to build a stronger and more accepting 68. I implore you to do everything in your power to keep our children safe, happy, and thriving. Explore changes to policies around anti-bias training for all stakeholders, faculty, staff, students, parents. The resources are out there. There are for the taking. Explore opportunities to encourage the community to be together. Lead us in this dialogue. I'll leave you with one question. Is the legacy you want to leave our children with, what is the legacy you want to leave our children with in this district? A district that sits by and lets hate destroy it, or one that stands up for kids? I hope you choose to be upstanders. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next comment is from Anna Lapson.
Oh my goodness. I was hoping some parents would speak first, but I guess it's the draw. Some of you might remember me. I'm the lady who spoke last time and quoted Martin Luther King. Here we are again. I'm kind of like tempted to quote Martin Luther King again. The truth is, I truly admire the late Reverend King. I think he was a man ahead of his time. He was fierce, he was focused, and he forged great many alliances. And a lot of my Jewish friends, and mostly even their parents, are still proud that they were like marching together for the civil rights movements. And at this point, I feel like we don't have that many allies, and we'll like stand in front of you and begging you to like take us seriously. The reason I'm speaking today is that, you know, this incident, I keep like referring to it, and like, I hope everybody knows what happened. But once upon a time, I was a little girl who was in the playground, who was told that, you know, Jews are not allowed to play with other kids, that I'm not one of theirs. There's Russian nouns have gender, just like in Hebrews, and they would call me Hebraika, and even though it's just a word for a female Jew, you know, the way they would say it, you know, I was 5-year-old, I didn't understand sarcasm, I didn't understand that it was like something that I maybe should be embarrassed of, and whatever. And I'm not Rosa Parks, but I kept coming back to the playground for like more views, hoping something changed. And I also had a dream that one day I would be allowed to leave that country that treats us as a second-class citizens, and live in a country where there's no hate, and at least if there's hate, it's not allowed, it's frowned upon, and you know, at one point this dream came through, and as I told you before, I lived here since 1985. I passed by this building many times. My children did not attend. I live in a school district 68. They did not attend public school. I didn't even know what's happening in this building until the spring. And I know you're doing a great job, and I know that anti-Semitism in Skokie is not a new thing. There were areas in Skokie that used to be restricted to Jews, but we overcame it, right? So there's a new tide now, and it seems like it's unsurmountable, and it's much easier to pretend that maybe just as it came, it'll blow away. But I think it won't, and so I made some notes here, and I just want to read it to you. So I feel like when parents of students and administrators, and I'm not like pointing fingers at anyone yet, but believe and teach that Jews are intrinsically oppressors, that Israel doesn't have the right to exist. They view resistance as justifiable. They make their own definitions of anti-Semitism. It's not acceptable. We must find a way to stem this tide and stop confusing our children with hateful rhetoric and misinformation that leads to anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish violence. I urge you to use the power of your office to support the Jewish community and if needed, to meet with Jewish community leaders to address anti-Semitism in our schools. And just remember how Dr. Clarence Jones, who was a speechwriter for my favorite Martin Luther King, right? He said during the Super Bowl, all hate thrives is silence, in silence. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, our next comment is from Shoshana Cooper.
Hi, thank you. My daughter attended District 68 in 1990, Highland School, Old Orchard Junior, and Niles North, from 1990 to 2003, so 13 years. Things were different than now they are. The hate is festering, anti-Semitism is allowed, and I do believe anti-Semitism is racism. Jews have rights like everybody else. Everybody is welcome in Skokie, and you cannot say that, oh, the Jews are not supposed to be here, the Jews are tied to Israel, and all this kind. So comments for kids, go back to the shtetls are not allowed, shouldn't be allowed, it will be part of the policy. Or kids shouldn't be afraid to put Israeli flag on their Facebook because they're not safe. You cannot just put it under the rug, this is not right. When they put some comment, the Jews were marching with Martin Luther King. They were always for the antidote. And then after October 7th, they realized that nobody is marching with them. You cannot just have one group have consequences when they use the N-word or you people, and for Jews, it's allowed. Unless you have, I was told by the president of the board, unless there's some physical things, don't ignore the talk. That's not right, because that's how was Germany in 1935. It starts with talk, and talks bring actions after that. And this is bullying kids, and it shouldn't be allowed. No cyberbullying, no bully, no hate, no anti-Semitism, because this is racism, you know. Who to say that one group is better than the other, you know? And I think that every person of this board shouldn't have hate in their heart. They should try to teach the kids to get along with everyone. And I talked twice before when I wrote against Professor Noel Sullivan, because until today I cannot understand how she can have so much hate in her heart to write that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's mean Jews are not allowed a country. And then they're saying Jews, Zionism, Israel. Why? Why it's like that? You know? You should not put it under the rug. You should put in your policy that anti-Semitism is not allowed, and all these comments against Jews are not allowed. And if you don't do it, you fail. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. The next comment is from Jay Pine.
As you can see, board members, trustees, I'm not sure the name, there's a lot of people that are here. I don't know if you know of what recently happened. Is everyone aware of what recently just happened? Why some of these people are here talking about bullying? And I know that you have to have policies for bullying. And unless it starts from the top going down throughout the school system, it's not gonna be, it should not be tolerated in our schools. I live across the street from Devonshire. My kids went to public school, my kids went through high school. I believe in this community, been in this community for decades. And I've seen that there's an evolution going on where we don't wanna have anyone calling anyone, whether they're Muslim, Jewish, or any other ethnicity. That type of situation, if the social workers, and if you don't take the kids and teach them, it comes from the parents possibly. And what happens is you wanna be cool, you wanna say whatever the kid that you're hanging out with, hey, yeah, okay, you hate those people, or those people, or the girls that don't look like you or so. That's not what Skokie was always built on. And so, I haven't heard anyone answer me whether you all know of the situation that we're
I'll
talking
remind you,
about.
this is not a dialogue with the board. You can make your comment, but we
Okay.
cannot
Oh,
engage.
you can, okay, alright. Well, I mean, this is new for me, I've never been here before. I need to find out, is the board aware of a situation with kids that were playing they are, okay. So my comment is basically that everybody in Skokie is equal. And if you don't take it from the top down, and if the bullying policies aren't enacted, then what happens is that somebody's gonna get hurt. And you're gonna hurt children. And these are our future generations. And I'm asking the board to really take this situation very seriously, because we as a community, I can't speak for everyone, I'm just looking, I know some people here, we're coming to you and saying to you, it's not an acceptable situation. We are a multicultural society here in Skokie. We're not in in some rural farm area. We're in a cosmopolitan city that has a lot of diversity. And if the bullying policies, and I'm going to the bullying policies because that's what you can go to your lower down levels and saying, this is not an acceptable thing to bully one child or say to that one child, hey, we don't wanna play with you. And if it doesn't start now, it's only gonna get worse, because as we can see in over the last number of years since COVID, a lot of things have changed. And I'm asking the board to take some time out to really go back to your teachers, your social workers, your principals, to be able to express to them how important at this junction, that if it's not stopped, and if we don't start teaching our children, we love each other. However you pray, to whatever God you wanna pray to, or no God, it should be, we should all care about each other and not have this divisiveness. And again, I will say this, some of this can come from homes. And if it comes from homes, even the parents need to be educated that Skokie does not tolerate this. And that if you don't put different, I'm not saying use this as an example, but you have to be able to have people understand that there are consequences if this is the type of behavior you're gonna have occur in our schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next comment is from Jillian Shear.
Alright, I wasn't planning on talking, so I'm gonna keep it short. Last time I spoke here back in April or May, whenever this was, I told you a story about my daughter who was in 3rd grade, who just about 11 months ago was bullied and was told by a classmate that she didn't like her country, and that country being Israel. And I stated that we are American citizens, we love Israel, but our country is America. And told the principal spoke to the parents, and nothing has happened. And we are now 11 months later, and I'm finding out that children that are students at Devonshire and children that are students that just live in the area don't feel safe on school grounds and are scared. And I can tell you that my daughter, we pulled her out of Devonshire because she got too good. Because the school helped her so well that she was able to be mainstreamed in the Jewish school that we wanted to be in. And we still had a child at Devonshire, we have a child at the ECC. We are so proud to be Devonshire Dolphins and live in District 68 and be able to have this community that helps children. But I don't ever wanna find and hear from a child that they are scared to be on the playground. And I said to my daughter when I found out that this happened, I said, I would die inside if those words ever came out of your mouth. Because as we've heard, it starts at home. And I would die. I wouldn't yell at my child. I would confess my sins and be so overwhelmed with what I have said in front of my child that she would feel that she could go out and say those things. Hate starts at home. Hate is scary. And the actions that took place last week started out so innocently. Boys playing a game, and once they realized that a boy was wearing a kippah, they kicked him out. How amazing would it have been if that didn't happen, and if we didn't have to be here talking about that? If the group of boys, both that went to District 68 and that went to a private school, could have played together, how kumbaya and symbiotic would that have been? But now we're here and we are telling you that we have an issue. There is hate in the community. It is scary. Children are afraid to play on the playground. And there has to be something that we can do that starts from the board and that trickles down to the principals and trickles down to the parents and trickles down to the students, where children are not afraid to be at school. They're not afraid to play on a playground. They're not afraid to see a child on the other side of the street and walk away from them. So that's what we are here for. We are asking you to set a precedent where children, no matter what they look like, things that they cannot change. You can't change. I watched a really great video. If you want to say something to a child and they can't change that about themselves in 10 seconds, don't say it to them. Okay? If you can't say, I don't like your shirt, oh, that kid can change their shirt. I don't like the color of your skin. You can't change it. And that's what we need to teach. So that's what I'm here to say. As a parent of a child that is in the school, I would, like I said, die inside. But I think that this community is so amazing and that we can move forward from this situation and we can teach our children. We're students. We are humans, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now read the written comments that were provided in advance. First is from Sue Ann Rosen, a community member, who writes, sadly, news from the outside of this country have had an emotional effect on many people. We know that some of these effects have been expressed in a very negative way. Clearly, children in our district have carried stories from their parents, presumably, and brought some of this very negative attitude to the school and have used it against our children. This, like any other sort of bullying, should be addressed in a way where children know that there are certain topics they cannot use, particularly when it leads to discrimination. What steps has the district taken to prevent these going forward and address those issues that have occurred in the past? This is an excellent opportunity for all of us to demonstrate respect, and which can lead to a teaching moment. Our next comment is from Beatrice Gonzalez, parent of children in the 68th district. I must urgently draw the board's attention to a deeply troubling situation. Jewish students in our district have been subjected to hate speech for nearly a year. This is not new information. We have all heard the community's desperate cries for help over the past several months. This is a serious escalating issue that will not simply fade away on its own. We cannot afford to remain passive any longer. I would like to know what the board's long-term plan is to ensure the safety and inclusion of all students in our district. Our next comment comes from Katie Pellish, community member, who writes, I'm once again writing to the board as an extremely concerned community member, deeply disturbed to hear of the extremely anti-Semitic and dangerous acts that have happened to our students and community members. Upon hearing about an anti-Semitic incident that happened at Devonshire and Old Orchard, it feels as if we are being transported back to Nazi Germany and are lost in a sea of bystanders, watching as Jews are being attacked. As a school social worker in Skokie, I am well aware of the behavioral procedures and systems that are in place to protect all students, but have clearly failed our Jewish student population. I simply do not understand why you are allowing students to feel unsafe within their school and community environment, one in which you preach equity and security for all. I fear it is clear that these hateful incidents have been completely neglected to be addressed and responded to. What is your reporting process? What is the investigation process, and what are the proactive measures you are putting in place to educate students to mediate these anti-Semitic issues? The ADL has very clear guidelines and suggestions for how to explicitly add language to your harassment policy to address anti-Semitism in your schools. This should be added immediately. Like your district educators, I am constantly sitting in equity trainings only to find that Jews and explicit language addressing anti-Semitism is left out of that vital work. This perpetuates the systems in place that continuously put Jewish students and staff at risk. It is your job as educators to provide psychological and physical safety for all students, yet it feels as if the Jewish population of D68 has been left out of that standard. Our next comment is from Elizabeth Hinzinger, a parent with children in the district. Good evening, my name is Elizabeth Hinzinger. I have 2 children in Highland. I am also a teacher at Niles North High School. For at least the past 4 years, Highland has had its open house on the same night as Niles North. I am writing to request that in future years, Highland hold this event on a different day. I am surely not the only parent who has a work conflict each year, of course. However, open house is also an exciting evening for teachers, and each year I have students who tell me that their parents were unable to attend North's open house because they were at Highland and vice versa. I hope that in future years, District 68 will be able to work around District 219's calendar for open house and parent-teacher conferences so that parents with multiple children have the opportunity to attend these events at the elementary, middle, and high schools should they choose. Thank you. Our next comment is from Elizabeth Richmond, who writes, their issue is kids/anti-Semitism on the playground last night, and that we must resolve anti-Semitic bullying. Our final comment is again from Kate Pellish, community member, who writes, I am expressing today to express my deep dismay that after resounding evidence about Dr. Sullivan's involvement with the Northwestern encampment and painfully obvious anti-Semitic views, she has stated extremely biased and false statements to other board and community members that are so clearly anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic. From the circulated FOIA emails, it is unabashedly clear that she does not come from a place of inclusion for Jewish people, and nor is she trying to hide that. The fact that some members of the board have not done anything to address her concerning involvement at the encampment on top of her problematic views is unacceptable at this point in time. From the FOIA emails, it is clear that one board member was working tirelessly to support the Jewish community and was faced with blatant anti-Semitism and a lack of support from the other members of the board to rally behind her concerns. While in some warped capacity, it is clear that Dr. Sullivan views her actions to be sticking up for a population of people that need support. In doing so, she has completely left out an entire population of people in her own community that are being targeted and made to feel deeply unsafe. That is not the D68 way, and if this continues to be your messaging that you accept Dr. Sullivan's actions, then your commitment to equity is a total farce. Dr. Sullivan can no longer safely if she ever did serve our community, and we demand accountability and a change. That brings us to the end of our public comment. Thank you all. We will now move on to our superintendent's reports.
Our first item in our superintendent report is our 6-day enrollment. This is something we provide an update on annually. And within the 6-day report, I have a couple of highlights I'd like to share with you. Our enrollment is up, so we are at 1,717 students. This is an increase of 65 students from last year, or roughly 4%. Our early childhood centers enrollment has increased by 53 students from last year. Our elementary enrollment has decreased by 30 students, and our middle school enrollment has increased by 42 students. There is a memo with tables attached in the board book if you'd like to dig in further to this data. We do break it down by racial and ethnic diversity, as well as the percent of our students who are eligible to receive free or reduced price meals. We use this data in the schools, we use it at the district level for various planning purposes. I do want to note, we do have some fluctuation that we're keeping an eye on as it relates to specific elementary schools. As you may or may not know, in 2021, there were some adjustments made to boundaries, and we have had some increase and some decrease in enrollment based on that. So we are watching that from year to year, as well as throughout the year as well. But overall, excited to share that our enrollment is up. And it's great that we see that increase in the early childhood center as we think about the new facility and what that means for us. Just to point out, it's almost doubled just in the last year. So I imagine with that new space coming in, more classroom spaces, obviously a beautiful space that'll be incredibly innovative. We'll hopefully see even more of that and be able to bring the community in early to stay with us all the way through Old Orchard. So excited to share more about that, and I can touch on that in a minute with the superintendent report as well. Any questions about enrollment at all? Sure.
What's the, just for my knowledge, what's the total new student capacity at the ECC for the new building?
It's a good question. So we'll have 7 classrooms, 7 specific classrooms. There'll also be more of like a multi-purpose middle space, as well as sort of a STEM make it space. I don't know what the exact number is off the top of my head. I don't know that we have that. Because of the AM PM programming, there's gonna be some flexibility there throughout. But right now we have, is it 4 classrooms or 3 roughly?
We have 5 classrooms,
5 classrooms?
so we're gonna move up to 7
Okay.
with the option of an 8th if we had to move that make it space to an 8th classroom. But we'd like to keep that make it space.
Got it, thanks Sharon.
Thank you.
Just jumped out at me that our attendance is identical to 2019-20, which you might recall as being a problematic school year. So it's nice to
Yes.
see that there's been a rebound,
I did not see that, wow,
literally the same
yeah,
year.
good catch. That's almost.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you. Up next, I'm gonna take it.
Please, yes.
We have our wonderful team at Highland Elementary School here to present on connections. I will not say more than that, because I know they have a wonderful presentation ready to go. Dr. Karen Bradley is our principal at Highland. She will kick us off.
That was the hard part, changing the technology.
Success.
So good evening, and thank you so much for having us here this evening to talk about some highlights at Highland School. I'm super excited, although they're still sitting down, that nearly my entire leadership team is here. When we talk about what do we want to present, this was a very obvious choice for us. So before I get started with the next slide, I want to introduce everyone. This is Elizabeth Nielsen, she teaches 5th grade. Cindy Stevens teaches 3rd grade. Nicole Cooney teaches 4th grade. Megan Looney teaches science. Patty Barron is our math specialist. Jordan Katz is one of our special education teachers. Anna Johnson had to leave, and she's our instructional coach. And Asya Hussein is our 1st grade teacher who is not able to be here this evening. But other than that, the entire leadership team is here, and I'm very proud that they're here and want to talk about this aspect of our school. So we want to talk a little bit about connections. To begin with, tying it to the board goals or the strategic plan, we feel this falls under the area of cultural responsiveness, equity and inclusion, as well as social emotional learning and the whole child, specifically in the areas of articulating a philosophy of education that recognizes the value of developing the full range of human potential and empowering students to advocate for themselves. So we know that relationships, research tells us that relationships are really important in schools. There's a lot of research out there about that teacher-student connection, but tonight we're gonna highlight 4 different types of connections in our school that are fostered. It's gonna be a broad overview. We probably could give 6 or 7 or 8 more examples under each category, but we know you have a full agenda. But we're going to talk a little bit about student-to-student connection, teacher-to-student connection, teacher-to-teacher connection, and school-to-home connection. All of those impacting students' academic and social growth, enhancing motivation, building self-worth and confidence. All of this comes from a culture or a school climate that's based on trust, and valuing all of those relationships creates that sense of safety at school. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to, I think, Mr. Katz. Cindy, did you want to do the page turner here?
So
hi everyone again, my name is Jordan Katz. I'm a special ed teacher at Highland. Honored to be speaking on behalf of my school about something I think we all feel is really important. So I was tasked with kind of giving you guys a top line overview of what this presentation is going to be about. And when I was brainstorming how to introduce the topic, I kept coming back to the concept of what is education. And I think if we synthesize it and we boil it down to its core, it comes down to relationships and connections. It's about how we build a classroom environment, how we build a school community that is conducive to learning through these connections. Because I think everything we do stems from the relationships and the connections that we help create at our school. Of course, all of us here, we want our students to feel empowered, we want them to be successful, we want them to feel comfortable making mistakes and become lifelong learners. But it begs the question again, how do we go about doing that? You know, at Highland, we believe a large part of that is through these shared connections that we work really, really hard to establish. This presentation is going to take you through a myriad of different examples. But if you were to come to our school on any given day and you were to walk into any given classroom, you're going to see some consistent themes. You're going to see how we facilitate peer-to-peer interactions. Obviously, we want to make that positive. We work on reciprocal turn-taking. We work on problem solving. We work hard on conflict resolution. You're going to see how we foster empathy and kindness and relationship building. And it's not always perfect, but it's a powerful message that we do try to communicate with regularity. You're going to see how we've cultivated student and teacher relationships that are really based on mutual respect and trust. And we really strive for these connections and these relationships to be the lifeblood of the work we do at Highland. Karen kind of mentioned those four specific areas. So before I turn it over to my colleagues who are going to delve a little bit deeper, please know we appreciate the opportunity to share about this topic because it is so passionate. We are so passionate, and like we said, it's the lifeblood of what we do. So thank you guys.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the student-to-student connections that we have at Highland. We do many things to foster these connections between students throughout the year. Students build relationships and strong bonds with each other as they progress from kindergarten to 5th grade. Students frequently have opportunities to meet with not only are parents and other family members invited to be mystery readers in classrooms, at Highland, students can have siblings come and read to them as well. Here you can see a young Highland Hawk reading to his siblings' class, which further builds connections between students. Students frequently have opportunities to meet with buddy classrooms, with younger students being paired with older students in our school. Classes with older students can be called in to help support an activity that younger students might need support with. Many times buddy classrooms also meet for celebrations of accomplishments, both for the older students and for the younger students. This could happen if they're sharing a special book that they published and they wanted an audience for that. It could happen when they're sharing a project that they're particularly proud of.
Hi, I'm Megan Looney. I'm a Highland science teacher, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our teacher-to-student ways that we make connections. So I think the biggest thing is that we take the time to try to go and think of different ways that can really connect on an identity level with students, and so those are a couple of the things we're going to talk about here. One of those is just through, obviously teachers write feedback and share notes with students. One, I think, unique thing at Highland is there are hallways that have lockers in them where the students share their work, and teachers intentionally leave sticky notes, and it's wonderful to see how excited the students get when they're like, oh, someone's looked at my work and they give me feedback or a positive note. Also, you can just see with the sticky note on the left, just even something like you can have a great day, perhaps after a student has had a difficult day or been working on something. Another unique thing that we have at Highland is Highland Palooza, and it's our silent auction that we work on through our PTA who organizes it. Teachers offer different events and activities that students and families are invited to bid on. Teachers really highlight and shine things that they have interest in, so you can see there's a Swiftie pizza party with teachers who, second grade team who wanted to have a pizza party connected to Taylor Swift. And then even on the right, ice cream parties and a social where students were invited to come to those. So those are some informal opportunities, but really foster again those connections between students and teachers. A final way that we share about our identities with our students are our bio or biography slides. On an annual basis, we revise this information with students. Our bio slides are a way to share about our identity. We can share about our families, our personal interests, and students can get to know us on a little bit deeper level. This year, we've actually moved into sharing what our values are. So as students and families are creating their charters, they can see what's important to us that help to unlock learning in a different way. It's a great way too that I have kids come into my science room and they're like, oh, today in my homeroom, I read about you, I know about you, you've got nephews, you've got this. And so I'm sure a lot of my colleagues can relate, but it's those sometimes even informal connections that really help to deepen and strengthen students' potential and readiness to learn. And now I'm gonna pass it on to.
So teacher-to-teacher connection is next. So one of the ways we connect, and this way is through after-school sports, and pickleball and badminton has been the focus sport as for the last, I think this is gonna be the start of the third year. Our Urdu teacher, Mr. Aslam, was the one who kind of first started getting it organized, but since then has had a regular crew. In speaking with some of the pickleball players, they've said that they love the stress relief at the end of the week and being able to unwind and recharge mentally through physical activity. Being together helps build trust and communications in a different way, and they've particularly enjoyed having the space to connect with colleagues whose schedules don't cross during the school day. And we won't call Mr. Aslam stickler pickler, but apparently he does keep everybody in line. It's very, very, gives frequent reminders of the rules, yeah. So, and then we have Coffee Talk, which was born from our Learning for Justice and SEL work at Highland, and it came about from a desire for teachers to have a space to continue talking about some of the issues that kind of are put forth in staff meetings or PD. The focus is to push our thinking in the areas of culture and climate, curriculum and instruction, leadership, and family and community engagement. Sort of our informal missions are to engage in ongoing, thoughtful, and difficult conversations with an open mind and empathetic heart. To question, challenge, debate in a genuine effort to deepen our shared understanding of related content, and to continue to build trust, practice inclusivity, and honor diversity among staff members and students, their families, and the greater community. Also, another goal of Coffee Talk is that teachers leave with something that they can take to their classrooms that relates directly to what we talk, but then can be readily used, kind of student facing. And then a third way we have colleagues connecting is through book clubs. The most recent one is up there, which was Year of the Tiger, yes. But prior to that, we've had two that I was personally involved with, Troublemakers, Lessons in Freedom from the Young Children at School, and one of my favorites, Breeding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants, which is a nonfiction book by a botanist and a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation that had us examining botanism and environmentalism through a lens of traditions and cultures of indigenous peoples of North America. It also had us exploring relationships, the reciprocal relationships between plants and human efforts to cultivate a more sustainable world. So reading that together and thinking about ways we can bring our learning from those book clubs into the classroom has been a valued experience.
Okay, Next is School to Home. Once again, Patty Perrin, math specialist at Highland. Hello to everyone. And I just want to start by reading the quote, and I'm going to preface it with Highland believes that family engagement is not a program, but it's a culture. It's not an obligation, it is an opportunity. It's not just about being in school, it's about being part of the learning process. And if you could go back. The picture that you see on the left is our very own Nicole Cooney in costume. They are doing a reading, an interactive reload of a math book. I'm Trying to Love Math is the name of the book. It's about an alien who's trying to love math. And to piggyback on a little bit of Nicole's humor, I'm just gonna say it was a big hit. It was actually out of this world. So for Math Night, we use a play-based approach for this popular community event, highlighting engagement, thinking and reasoning, and activities parents can use with their children to help at home for their children to become fluent and flexible mathematicians. This is a picture at the top left of students engaging in building robots that they then measured the area of their robots with arrays in square units. The top right picture is of students, families, and teachers working together playing fluency math games. And the bottom right picture is a family enjoying a very popular staple at our math night, which is the math photo booth. Okay, you can continue. Thank you. Family reading night is another way that we bring the community together. Reading night brings the Highland community together to promote literacy and foster a love of reading among children and their families. Family reading night is always themed, and this year, trees took center stage. Families were invited to come in and read library books to their children. Then they participated in a story time with a mystery reader, followed by an interactive museum, which you'll see on the top left, that included tree specimens, and also STEM activities, tree-themed crafts, games, and writing activities. On the bottom right, you'll see a family and other students participating in that STEM activity. Mystery readers are community members who come in and read books in a classroom setting of their choice. Teachers usually communicate this as an option during open house or during conferences. And the mystery reader builds anticipation by sending in clues about themselves and getting the kids excited and trying to guess who it will be. Taking time out of their busy schedules to spend in our classrooms not only fosters a sense of community, but also sends the important message that reading is valuable. And then one last thing that we'd like to highlight, like we've all said, this list is not exclusive, but or inclusive of all of the things that we do, but the family charter is one that we're very proud of. The charter is a living document that helps students and staff feel safe, welcome, and heard. It's created through thoughtful discussions and activities where students and teachers consider what feelings they want to have in the classroom, generate a list of those feelings, agree on actions that can be taken to support those feelings, and then discuss how to resolve conflicts. Feeling empowered by these discussions in the classroom, students then go home and have these discussions to see if they'd like to develop a family charter. And the picture that you see in front of you is one of the family charters that was created at home and shared in the classroom. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that's our whole presentation, just with a final quote. Learning is all about connections, and through our connections with unique people, we're able to gain a true understanding of the world around us. So we hope you'll come by Highland anytime. We're there every day. To see all this in action. We would really welcome you anytime. Any questions?
I would just add that whenever I have a chance to visit Highland, Dr. Bradley is always incredibly excited, always beaming with something to show and share me, and I always feel like you're almost like a student showing off a project that you and the team have worked on with tons of pride, and I always feel incredibly welcomed and thankful for those opportunities, and it's just great to be there, and excited to talk about it later with some of the capital improvements that I don't expect you to stay for.
Well, I have to say it's all due to the incredible staff that I am so fortunate to work with, so, yeah. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item of business is the reading and acceptance of minutes. Oh, no, wait, did I jump you? All right, we have one more superintendent's report.
Just a couple of quick updates.
Don't leave, don't leave.
Thank you again to the Highland team, that was excellent, appreciate that.
Thank you, Highland.
Just wanted to give a couple of quick updates on superintendent transition. So it is going very well. I've had an opportunity now to conduct a parent meet and greet with community members present as well on August 29th. Have had what I would call formally scheduled but informal meet and greets at each of the 4 school campus sites. I was at Devonshire today. Those opportunities are very two-way, more one-way, allows for me to listen and learn as much as I can from the staff. And the feedback has been great and incredibly helpful. I'll be sharing back with the staff some of the learnings from that, more than likely on the upcoming Teacher Institute update for them, for me. In terms of the community itself, we'll definitely be utilizing some of the feedback that was shared, as well as conducting more outreach and gathering of input as it comes time for our strategic plan outreach. So our strategic plan is from 2023 to 2025. So we'll be doing a lot more engagement coming soon in a real formal structure that'll have a lot of opportunities for input, the gathering, and then the use of that information to continue with some of the elements of our plan, or maybe adjust, calibrate, continuously improve, which is one of our values along the way. So excited for that. I've also been trying to get out in the community a bit more. I was at the Skokie Public Library for their strategic planning, admittedly stealing some ideas. And I was transparent about that. But they were great and had a really wonderful turnout, and I was able to make some connections there as well to hopefully, again, utilize some of those team members when it comes time for our outreach, as well as visiting with the Village of Skokie this week, and meetings with the ELL Parent Center, as well as my fellow superintendents here in Niles Township. We had a meeting recently in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks for the coordination of the Early Childhood Center. It's going very well. We are getting closer and closer to some of the details with that. We reported out, as you remember, in August, and we're able to learn even more after the August meeting. Even things as far down as some of the landscaping and the ideas to beautify some of the space that will be there. Very exciting. It is going to be really, really something to be proud of in the community, alongside the existing items as well. And we are still receiving continued savings as a result of some of the sustainability efforts that the board has prioritized. So as a result of our geothermal work, we have received incentive funds from ComEd. Most recent was $25,000. These aren't necessarily checks, but they're more so incentives showing us the savings as a result of our planning and the efforts that were made. I'm saying our, but really it was all the people before me, just to be totally fair on that. But it's great, and we're going to continue to report out on that along the way. Other than that, a couple of important dates coming up. Friday, September 27th is Teacher Institute Day. That is a day of no school. Thursday, October 3rd is Rosh Hashanah. That is also a day of no school. Monday, October 14th, Indigenous Peoples Day, no school. Thursday, October 10th is elementary evening parent-teacher conferences, followed by Friday, October 11th, our district-wide daytime parent-teacher conferences. That is a day of no school. Thursday, October 17th is the Old Orchard Junior High evening parent-teacher conferences. And then the Thursday, that same Thursday, is our October Board of Education meeting as well. That concludes my superintendent's report, unless there are any questions about any of the items.
No, and we will move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of business is the reading and acceptance of minutes. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from the August 15th Board of Ed regular session and closed session meetings and the September 4th, 2024 Board of Ed closed session meeting.
Second.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Lonegro.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Sturbins.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
The consent agenda is our next item of business. The consent agenda includes the personnel report covering employee hiring, leave of absence, resignation is posted with the agenda for this meeting. Financial reports, which includes fund balances for August 2024 and the statement of position report. Pay orders and expenditures, which includes accounts payable, statement of cash flow, and the P-card monthly report. Board of Education policy, second reading. Does any member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? If not, may I have a motion and a roll call to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented by the board president.
Second.
Lonegro.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Sturbins.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Thank you. We now move on to our reports and discussion items, starting with the Highland Capital Project options.
So as mentioned a minute ago, in the strategic plan, we have a focus on pursuing exceptional physical environment, includes enhancements to advance creativity, innovation, safety, sustainability, while supporting the needs of all learners. Included in the board packet is a narrative summary of the upcoming renovations at Highland that is scheduled for this summer. Just at a high level, what is intended here is to go to bid in December, so early winter. Have a board meeting approval of any contracts at the December board meeting. The construction would then begin the first day of summer break and would end prior to the return of teachers. A lot of this work is very similar to the work that took place this summer at Devonshire. This includes things like casework, which new tack boards, marker boards in all classrooms, all the acoustic ceiling tiles being replaced, specific doors being replaced in compliance with the Life Health Safety Code, as well as some of the updates, which was approved and shared back in the August meeting as well. Installation of new lockers. The roofing, it will maintain the existing warranty, so no issues there, which I know is something that we've talked about before. There are several mechanical renovations, of course, new geothermal heating and cooling, just like at our other site. This includes a replacement of the unit vents. They're much quieter and lead to obvious sustainability. There will be some ductwork that is new and installed in the gymnasium, as well as a removal of some older equipment, more on the maintenance side that would be obsolete. There will be also improvements made to things like fire protection, some sprinkler updates, plumbing, which is always exciting to all of us, but heavily needed, as well as electrical renovations, the replacement with new LED lights, so that's incredibly helpful in terms of the learning environment itself, as well as updates that will be compliant with the International Energy Conservation Code. That includes things like occupancy sensors in rooms, dimming controls, as well as daylight and timing pieces and options with that. So again, very similar to what's been done so far. Met with a group of teachers, as I mentioned today, and also throughout last week, and facilities has come up a number of times as a real strength in the district, and I'm excited to just be a part of that to make sure that we get that project done on time so that we have another wonderful learning space for our staff and our students.
Thank you.
Any questions or anything with Highland?
Oh, did you guys complete the playground?
Yes, should have mentioned, the playground is complete, grass is growing in a wonderful field, it's massive and awesome. There's some asphalt work that will take place, great call. It looks really, really like a great fit in that space, it's really cut out nice with the trees, it's awesome, it's such a great spot. So, excited to finish that. It's open, but we're just doing some asphalt touch-ups.
All right, moving on to the NTDSC report.
Okay, so we had a board meeting, the last board meeting was August 22nd. Safety was actually a key highlight there, that they were thinking about a new plan that they implemented according to I Love You Guys, and they've got the safety plan training and refreshers that were done one day a week. The thing that they really love about this is that all the new safety plans are action-based instead of situation-based. So everybody gets to have on their lanyards specific actions to be taken in specific instances so that they have it right there in case anything happens. So it simplified that procedure quite a lot because of course with the type of children that go to Beloit, a lot of those children have very different needs and emergencies, so it's really helpful. They had a really exciting extended school year. It was one that they actually got to have at Beloit, which was really exciting because prior it had been in construction, and they had a really great partnership with the Maine Niles Association for Special Recreation, or MNASR. So they were partnering. ESY, the extended school year, goes just for the first half of the day, but prior a lot of families couldn't really access it because they needed more full day coverage. So the students were actually sent to MNASR's summer programming for the afternoons, which was really great. So they had 180 students that were going to extended school year at Malloy, and 87 were students that were with the ECC. So they also did a great new website launch with major improvements. And this year they're stable at 316 students for NTDSE right now, which is the same number they ended with in 23-24. But given the overall trends of growth in terms of needs, they're engaging a space study soon to try to figure out ways that they can actually deal with the increasing needs of students that need additional special education stuff that can't be facilitated within the general ed environment. So they're sort of going to weigh options going forward. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that.
Thank you very much. Our next report and discussion are the Board of Education first readings. We have 5 first readings this week, this month, including 226 Uniform Grievance Procedure, 265 Title IX Grievance Procedure, 5.100 Staff Development Program, 7.20 Harassment of Students, 7.185 Teen Dating Violence Prohibited. Do we have any questions or comments on any of these readings?
I first want to say thank you, Scott, because despite its formatting, I really appreciate that you were so quick to try and figure out some of this, and I know it's really complicated because you weren't here. Hold on, my iPad's dying, and so I'm trying to pull it up on here. Okay. And thank you also for telling us about the racism-free schools law. And I saw too that the IDHR said that they were going to put it out in fall. So like, what does that look like in the interim? Because we were supposed to start that August 1st. So like, what are we doing as a district to bridge that gap?
Sure, so every one of our staff members, irregardless of role, is required to go through a discrimination training upon hiring. So that step's already been in place. All of these policies also already are in place. What has changed is Title IX has been updated. So Title IX started in the 1970s, was initially to address discrimination or lack of participation on the basis of sex. That's been expanded greatly now to provide additional protections for a number of other areas. So as a result of that policy shift, or should say that legal shift, all of these policies now need to be updated as well to address that. So that's the reasoning for those updates. In terms of our training on Title IX based training, we actually just conducted one last week with all of our administrators. In terms of harassment, that gets addressed in our initial onboarding and hiring with all staff around discrimination, as well as implicit bias that staff may have or that staff may be working towards improving upon. So those are already in place. It's just a matter of seeing what comes to us as it relates to the racism-free schools law and what those actual materials look like. Even that law itself has an opportunity for schools to use different training if it complies with the actual shifts that are from the law.
Cool. So then to the point of the trainings, and this is where I was trying to ask today. So a lot of DEI frameworks are built around certain systems of oppression versus oppressor, and we know that anti-Semitism is not included, or Islamophobia is included in that framework. So when they're doing these like onboarding trainings for discrimination and harassment, like are those two issues explicitly being mentioned, or are teachers given explicit information on what does anti-Semitism look like in the classroom, what does Islamophobia look like in the classroom, so that they can like avoid what has gone on?
Not in those trainings that I mentioned. So the anti-Semitism is not called out by name in that particular training. It doesn't mean those conversations aren't happening. I mean, you heard tonight the amount of connections that are going on across schools and with staff. In terms of the compliance base and what we need to do to meet the law as it currently is written, that's what those trainings are addressing.
Okay. So is the plan considering, and I know I wrote this too as well, that like the state's definition of implicit bias is not only race but ethnicity as well, and many organizations, including the AJC, deems Jews as an ethno-religious group. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we just want explicit language in the case that it's not being addressed. If it's being addressed, then nothing needs to change. But given, you know, everything that you've heard, and given the lack of procedure, it's hard to like trust in that. And so I just really am curious to know, like, what are we going to do in our policy? Are we gonna change the language? I'm not asking you because I know you don't make that decision, but like, are we gonna change the language, or are we going to say, hey, this is what we want as a district, and we hope that you find trainings that are explicit and incorporate that? So again, not to Scott, that's to everybody, because it's not easy, it's not the same, and it's not the same as racial issues. It's hard, it's complicated, this is why it's hard for everybody. Being Jewish is more than most people can understand, and so if you don't have information to know what to look for or what it sounds like, you're not doing it. And that's not the fault of the teachers, it's just the reality. So if I really, really urge you guys before the second reading to either, or Scott, you come back to us and say, hey, like, this is what we're gonna do and this is what we're gonna implement in conjunction with, you know, whatever you have to do per state law, or we move to actually change the language so that we can ensure that this is codified and all kids are getting the support that they need moving forward. Yeah, okay, well, I'll keep going. Okay, so harassment, you brought up, so as we saw last year, there was a lot of breakdown in communications. Not on you, you are new. So you said SIS is gonna be the system that everybody uses to document any of the incidents that occur. What then will happen to the information that is put into the system?
Is that, are you asking?
That one I am asking you.
Are you asking related to policy? I just wanna make sure. I
To the
stay on
harassment
agenda.
policy. Yeah. Cause you said that.
So in the event
yeah.
of a claim of harassment is made, what would happen? It would be reported and then administration would investigate.
Okay. And then is there going to be like looking at overarching trends, like, oh, we've noticed there's a spike in racial attitudes changing, and
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, so what is that? Like, is it gonna be a yearly review? What is that?
I think it would depend on the amount of infractions we have, if any, and what those would be, where they would be at, location-wise, time of year, type of behavior. That would all be an administrative decision that we make and that we look at. We meet every 2 weeks, so we have a lot of opportunity to dig into data that we're already doing. So for us, it's more so just continuously improving the way in which we look at that data. And the SIS, the Student Information System, really allows for us to just more facilitate that. It's already happening, it's just potentially allowing for us to have even better data on how we are teaching and what we're doing to help with anything that might need to be helped with.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely.
And I mean, obviously, I know your response, but I think it's really important that everyone in the community understands that you are putting structures in place that might not have been there in the past. And then along the lines also with the harassment policy. So I know that each situation is investigated, and then we do a restorative justice circle or something along those lines. Again, and this isn't necessarily a question to you, but this comes down to policy. Are we saying it's a one and done, or are we going to start I mean, what Highland's doing is amazing, but Highland chose to do that. That's not a district initiative, right? And so what are we going to do that is explicit for this specific issue of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia? How are we going to continue those conversations and it not just be a one-off? Because people have been brave and they've shared their stories, but there's way more stories, and I just hope that we're not just having a conversation, saying we're done, go back to class and have fun, because that has happened, and I've seen what's happened to certain students, and it's just got more antagonistic. So I hope that we either as a board think about how we frame our policy, or again, putting it as a part of our evaluation and what we're looking at the superintendent and how he is implementing this harassment policy to make sure that every student is safe in our community.
I would just state publicly that we absolutely do not tolerate any sort of bullying or harassment. And if it gets reported, it will get addressed. And if someone feels it doesn't get addressed, they need to speak to the administrator. And if they're not happy with what they hear from the administrator, they need to speak to me. Me, as the superintendent.
Do you want folks who experienced things last year and felt things were unresolved to come to you?
Sure.
Okay. I think that's really helpful for people to know. That's it.
I have a question, might be really dumb. In the uniform grievance procedure, is this a typo that says natural origin? Should it be national origin? Is that, or is natural origin a thing that I don't know about? It's bullet point number 4 on uniform grievance procedure. I mean, if we're gonna be precise, it should be national.
Good catch. We can take a look.
No, uniform grievance procedure, not harassment. It's the first one,
You can check the source from the state.
It's right here. Natural origin.
He's in
Yeah, I
press,
think
so he
it's-
should be with us.
I think it's-
Okay. That's all I saw, because
Yeah,
I was
good catch.
reading exactly what is defined there. That's the only place I found it in this document. I didn't find it in any other ones.
Yeah, it's repeated in 5,
Yeah, and then
but
it's repeated
without
as
the
national, and later in 4 it's national, so
Yeah,
I was
it's
like, this should be right.
It is national,
Okay,
yeah.
cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've created a new category for something, natural origin, national origin.
Any other comments on the other readings?
Just a question, when you referenced a lack of procedure, were you referencing waiting for the guidance from the state? Or were you talking about a lack of procedure within the district?
For teachers or for students?
You said that you were concerned, and I apologize, I don't remember the full context, but that part of your concern was a lack of procedures when it came to addressing anti-harassment.
Yeah, like if it is this, are we just saying it's, we investigate, we have a restorative conversation, move on? Or is it like, we investigate, we have a restorative conversation, we talk about what are we going to do holistically as a community to address this larger concern? Or to the point of who's reporting to who, because I don't think that was very clear. But Scott cleared that up, so I do appreciate that very much.
And I meant what wasn't very clear.
How things were being reported, because the FOIA showed that there were no anti-Semitic incidents, but we do know that several parents talked to staff and talked to principals, and I wanna understand where this breakdown in communication is happening, and if, now that it's been raised, like what the district is going to do to rectify that situation.
Okay.
I would, I mean, I think there's a really good point here in terms of thinking about those particular policies. There are a couple things that I feel like would be useful as a board to know first. One is, and you know, provided their support from others on the board, seeing if the district could investigate like what has or has not been working about grievance procedures. Like if there is a situation where, you know, like for instance, do the people that are having instances of bullying or harassment or other issues that make them feel unsafe, whether they be children or families or staff, are they aware of the procedures that they can go through? Are the people that are supposed to be documenting those things aware of how that goes, especially if it's now with Infinite Campus, is it in there? You know, what are the different schools doing to ensure that students and families and staff know about that? Because it seems like right now what's been happening is there's sort of like one-off reports to one board member, but the procedure, as I understand it, is it's supposed to go through particular chains to be able to ensure that the district can investigate. So I'd be curious about how that's working, if it's working well, if there's feedback from our community, particularly with the teachers and administrators, about what has or has not worked well in the past and whether this tool is working right now.
I also will say, we discuss as administration that outcomes vary based on investigations. And that's an incredibly, obviously private part of this as it relates to student information, but there's oftentimes additional information that comes forth in an investigation as well that can either complicate or support a scenario. And I think that's an area we can continue to grow in as well. That's something that any administrator is always working on. But I think that's the part that it may be left out of this conversation is what are the other pieces involved in these particular scenarios that we need to also consider and investigate fully as well. And that's why I think it becomes more of an administrative responsibility than anything. But the procedures are here, so it's on us now to ensure that we implement them, that we do our best to obviously continuously improve in any areas we need to as well.
Something else I was thinking as you were talking, Scott, is the complicated nature of some of the privacy elements of these cases, and that how would you communicate to other families or your administrators or your community some of the resolutions, when some of the resolutions and the circumstances that led to the need for resolutions are deeply personal, private. We also have prevailing, FERPA laws and other kinds of things that complicate the way our community knows how we take policy into practice. It's just something that is another kind of meta level challenge administratively that I recognize that you have.
Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Okay. We will move along. The next item of business is the adoption of the 2024-25 budget. May I have a motion?
Okay.
Who's volunteering for this one?
I think, no, just joking. I move to approve the adoption of the 2024-2025 budget. Whereas the Board of Education of Public School District Number 68, County of Cook, State of Illinois, caused to be prepared in tentative form of budget, and the Secretary of this board has made the same conveniently available to public inspection for at least 30 days prior to the final action thereon. And whereas a public hearing has held as to such budget on the 19th day of September 2024, notice of said hearing was given at least 30 days prior thereto as required by law, and all other legal requirements have been complied with. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of said district as follows. Section 1. That the fiscal year of this school district be, and the same hereby is fixed and declared to be, beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30, 2025. Section 2. That the budget in its final proposed form be and the same is hereby adopted as the budget of this school district for the said fiscal year, thereby appropriating the sum of $35,856,179 from the educational fund, and the sum of $3,229,457 from the operations and maintenance fund, the sum of $2,345,000 from the debt service fund, and the sum of $2,131,396 from the transportation fund, and the sum of $287,550 from the municipal retirement fund, which amount includes $655,450 for Social Security Medicare, and the sum of $13,325,000 from the Capital Projects Fund, and the sum of $340,000 from the Tort Immunity Fund, and that a copy of said budget resolution be filed with the official records of this meeting, adopted by the Board of Education this 19th day of September 2024.
Bravo. Well done, Katrina. Have we had our chance to ask any questions unless something's come to you?
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbins,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Paul Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonnie
Yes.
Thank you. The budget has been adopted. Thank you, Kenya.
Thank you, Kenya.
Next item of business is the approval of the Skokie Park District Intergovernmental Agreement for Operation of After-School Clubs. May I have a motion?
I motion to approve the Skokie Park District Intergovernmental Agreement for operation of after-school clubs.
So we have a wonderful contract with our Skokie Park District, and this provides elementary after-school clubs for our students. One of the provisions of this is that we do remove financial obstacles for students to participate. The clubs are being developed right now, but they are high interest. Everything from hip hop club to others, including really creative categories I don't want to name yet in case they don't commit to. But it's a really wonderful opportunity. Met with the Park District and talked through it. They utilize our space. It's just great. So we're excited to be able to provide that opportunity for our students as well as our families. Like I said, they are going through some hiring and they just brought a new team member on, so they will finalize the club offering soon. We'll be able to communicate that out along with the locations and the district. Really excited to have it continue.
Any questions about the clubs? Yeah. Do you?
Sullivan,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Paul Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonnie
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbins.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of the resolution authorizing the appointment of Township Trustee of Schools Representative. May I have a motion?
I motion to approve the resolution authorizing appointment of Township Trustee of Schools Representative.
Alright, a public act was recently passed to reorganize the trustees of schools, so this is the Niles Township Treasurer's Office, I just want to clarify that, we are not appointing a village trustee. The effective bill date was August 9th, and each of the impacted school districts in the area has met and has come to consensus that it would be a good opportunity for the CSBOs in the different districts to be a part of that. We would like to recommend that that person be Ms. Kenya Austin for us as a district. They do meet 4 times a year. There is constant communication with the treasurer's office anyway, already in that office, in that role. Often I will hear Kenya speaking with that team, so it makes a natural sense for us to have her be this representative, and I wanted to recommend her.
She looks excited.
I have just a small question.
Sure.
Since this is a new structure, is this something that, that our representative is gonna be reporting back to the board on periodically afterwards to know what's been going on?
Yeah, absolutely we can, yep.
Sturbins,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Paul Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonnie
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes. Do you know if those meetings are fully catered?
Hope not. But we will make a note to report on those, when necessary, particularly with the dates already planned, so.
Thank you. Alright, so I'll finish my notes here. And we move on to the final page. Thank you for your patience. There were 2 requests and/or responses for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period August 10th through September 12th. On August 13th, the district received a request from Evanston Roundtable requesting copies of all professional development and staff training proposals submitted to District 68 by consultant Elizabeth Biz Lindsay Ryan. The response was sent on August 23rd. On August 20th, the district received a request from Benjamin Rosen, copies of all email communications between two board members that include the word sex or gender or curriculum. The response was sent on September 6th. Per Public Act 97-256, each school board shall report to the State Board of Education on or before October 1st of each year the base salary and benefits of the district superintendent and all administrators and teachers employed by the district. Prior to this annual reporting to the State Board of Education, the information must be presented at a regular school board meeting, which it has. If there's no further business to come before the board, I call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Marshall,
Yes.
Ball Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonegro,
Yes.
Rofner,
Yes.
Disturbance,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Thank you.